This is breaking news from Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Good morning, I'm Mike Marza. Former President Trump just got into his vehicle at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, on his way to South Florida for a historic day in court tomorrow afternoon. This is a live look from Newscopter 7. The former president will become the first former president to face federal criminal charges, and that will happen in South Florida in a little more than 24 hours. Let's go to Newscopter 7 now, and John Del Giorno is above this motorcade that just departed his golf club there in Bedminster. John, what have you seen so far?
Well, Mike, what we've seen so far is, as you see, the motorcade just getting underway now from Trump National Golf Course. You see those people there in the parking lot. One of the things that struck me as we got overhead here, provide a little context. As far as Trump National Golf Course and Country Club goes, it's business as usual. So all of these high security events taking place literally next to the tennis courts where there are lessons going on at this hour. So this Trump motorcade now leaving the property. It'll be headed through some local roads here in Somerset County and down to Route 78. We've also watched the state police close those local roads in preparation for the motorcade. They are expected to get on Route 78 and then proceed east down to Newark International Airport. Let me just go back. You can see there the golfers here at the golf course. Again, it's business as usual as far as the golf course itself goes, but far from business as usual as this motorcade leaves the property. If you are at home and you plan on traveling Route 78 between Somerset County and Newark International Airport in, say, the next 20 to 25 minutes, be prepared. There will be closures. State police are out there. They've got the roadways temporarily shut down while the motorcade comes through. State police helicopters are up overhead as well. The motorcade going through the trees here a little bit, so we'll lose it, but it will come back to us. Mike, we'll stay overhead and we'll follow this all the way down to the airport as the motorcade progresses. Back down to you.
John, what is it, about 30 miles or so?
It is. It's about 30 miles. The briefing we got yesterday, they estimate this trip to take about 40 minutes. The ex-president's private jet, a 757, is on the tarmac at Newark Liberty Airport. It was parked there since yesterday, so they're not really in a flight window. That flight can leave whenever he arrives. But the last check that we got, he's due to arrive a little bit before the top of the hour. So, yeah, it should be about a 30 to 40-minute trip to get down to Newark Liberty.
All right, Newscopter 7 above the motorcade as it now makes its way to that plane at Newark Airport on its way to South Florida within the next hour or so, we expect. John Del Giorno, thank you so much. Stand by. Let's go to NJ Burkett now there in Bedminster to talk about this indictment. And unlike the arraignment that we witnessed here in New York a couple of months ago, NJ, we didn't really learn much about that case until that day here in New York. This is a much different deal for a variety of reasons, but we have so much more information, 49 pages laid out of what Mr. Trump is now facing. Yeah. Can you walk us through what the president faces in this case?
Well, Mike, let's be really clear about this case. Unlike the criminal case in New York brought by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, which involved hush money payments to a porn star to help his election campaign, this indictment says that Donald Trump essentially jeopardized national security by retaining hundreds, literally hundreds of classified documents, some of them marked top secret. He has criticized the special prosecutor Jack Smith in this case, calling him deranged. He's attacked the DOJ investigators as thugs. He's urging his supporters to show up at the Miami courthouse, essentially to protest. He's urging them to protest peacefully, but says they've got to get out there and protest. WABC radio over the weekend, he said he would never leave the race for president. Now, let's get to the indictment specifically, Mike, as you asked me about. 37 felony counts, including the willful retention of national defense information, essentially national secrets, a conspiracy to commit obstruction, basically accusing him of lying to federal investigators about whether he had kept all the documents or whether he had turned all of them over. And then there's another element to this, and that is making false statements to Justice Department investigators. And again, we're talking about literally hundreds of classified documents. These are documents pertaining to nuclear programs, defense and weapons systems, and the capabilities of those weapons systems and defense plans. Some of them apparently pertain to the defense capabilities of foreign governments, which makes this even more sensitive to this particular investigation, and certainly to foreign governments who might be really concerned about what secrets were sitting in one of Trump's bathrooms, on the floor of one of his ballrooms. I mean, this is really, really serious stuff. Again, it also contains information about an attack plan, an unspecified attack plan regarding a foreign government. This apparently, according to the Justice Department, put the entire U.S. spy network, and perhaps even foreign spy networks, at risk if this information were to fall into the wrong hands. How serious is this, Mike? Well, John Bolton was asked about this on CNN this morning, and here's what he said.
Neither I nor anybody else not involved in the case knows what's in the documents yet. But I do know what kinds of documents were put in front of the president during my time, I'm sure during the entire 4 years of his term. And they did go to absolute, the most important secrets that the United States has. The simple fact he had the documents, for any reason or no reason, should subject him to prosecution.
Witch hunt, scam, hoax. It's called election interference, and they're doing the best they can with it. The baseless indictment of me by the Biden administration's weaponized Department of Injustice will go down as among the most horrific abuses of power in the history of our country. This vicious persecution is a travesty of justice.
And that's former President Donald Trump speaking over the weekend, defending himself against what many are describing as a damning indictment. Speaking on Fox News over the weekend, Donald Trump's former Attorney General Bill Barr said, quote, if even half of it is true, then he's toast. He called this a detailed, damning indictment. We're live in Bedminster, New Jersey. NJ Burkett, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Mike, back to you.
And NJ, in the detail of this indictment, we also learned that there is an audio tape that apparently captured Mr. Trump discussing some of these documents.
Yeah, and apparently, from what I've heard, some of the reporting I've heard on this, that recording took place in one of his residences to several people, as a matter of fact. So again, I mean, there's a lot of evidence in this case, and Bolton pointed out in his interview on CNN that apparently some of this stuff, you know, I mean, all of it's very serious. All of it's very serious. So some of it, he said, if even half of it's true, as you heard Bill Barr say a moment ago, then Trump is in deep trouble. Deep trouble. Mike?
We'll see how it all plays out. An important step with the arraignment tomorrow, which is scheduled for 3 p.m. in downtown Miami. NJ, thank you. We'll be coming back to you as we continue to follow the former president's motorcade making its way to Newark Airport. And that's where I want to go to Janice Hughes. She's there in Newark with how the GOP rivals are responding. Because, you know, it is striking, Janice, when you think about this campaign, former President Trump is running for what would be his re-election and to try to get back into the White House. And at this point, even following the legal issues he has here in New York, he soared to a 30-point lead in the GOP primary race. Now you have this federal indictment. How are the GOP rivals responding? Because as of yet, it has been a tricky dance that they're trying to play to not turn off the Trump supporters, but also come out against the allegations in this indictment. What are they saying?
Right. So, Mike, we saw and heard some of the his GOP rivals speak out, and they have essentially been, like you said, towing that line, not publicly criticizing necessarily, most of them anyway, and saying that he should drop out of the race. But, you know, I do want to talk a little bit about, we are here at Newark Airport because former President Trump is making his way to the airport right now as we speak. And as he's moving from Bedminster to Newark, we heard John Del Giorno say it's going to be about a 40-minute journey. Expect those traffic delays. And of course, security is tight where the plane is parked here on the tarmac. And going back to kind of his GOP rivals' response to all of this, former Vice President Mike Pence called it a dark day and that he hoped the Department of Justice would find a way to resolve the issue without pressing charges. Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says there is an uneven application of the law based on political affiliation.
Attorney General Merrick Garland, stop hiding behind the special counsel and stand before the American people and explain why this indictment went forward.
Our founding fathers would have absolutely predicted the weaponization that we've seen with these agencies, particularly Justice and FBI.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie called the details in the unsealed indictment devastating and called Trump's alleged conduct irresponsible. And the former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, is the only GOP presidential hopeful who has demanded Trump end his presidential campaign. He also said it's wrong and offensive for potential candidates to be promising a pardon for the former president if he is convicted. Live outside Newark Airport, Janice Yu, Channel 7. Eyewitness News.
And Janice, I believe former Governor Christie and now political candidate for the Republican, hopeful of running for the White House. He has a town hall tonight, so it'll be interesting. No question he will be asked about his response to this indictment, especially on the eve of the court appearance. So it will be fascinating to watch that. Janice, thank you. Also at the airport there in Newark, Anthony Johnson, giving us some detail on what we can expect as far as the president's travels and when he gets down to Miami, what we can expect with the proceeding there. Anthony.
Yeah, as you heard from NJ, the former president, did leave Bedminster pretty much right on schedule around 11 o'clock this morning. So he is expected to arrive here at Newark Liberty Airport around 11:40. A lot of security around here. You heard Janice talking about it. The Port Authority, of course, is checking on the perimeter. The Secret Service, of course, they've done all of their work here to make sure the plane and the location here at Newark Liberty is secure. So we're waiting for the former president's arrival at this location. Of course, there will be his cars coming in to this lot that you see right behind me. We understand the plane is now parked just east of where we are standing. At that point in time, when the president arrives here around 11:40 this morning, he will get on that aircraft, and then they plan to take off at 11:50. Wheels up at 11:50 from Newark Liberty Airport, where he will be landing in Miami around 2:45, around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Now, of course, once he gets down there, he'll be meeting with some more lawyers. Once he gets down to Florida, they'll be discussing more about the case. He goes to court tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But there is supposed to be a large rally outside of the courthouse down in Miami, Florida, and some of the details of that are now starting to come out.
So they have a couple of scheduled rallies, one for 10 a.m. And then one at noon at the courthouse. Now we're looking at a 3 o'clock appearance, so that's people gathering fairly early. They did the walkthrough of the courthouse with Secret Service. How do we bring him in? What's the pathway to the courtroom? Where is he going to get booked in this building in terms of fingerprinting and, pretrial forms and all that? How are we getting him out? Is it the same way? All of those wheels have been turning, and that's to protect former President Trump.
Now, once he finishes down in Miami with the court session tomorrow, he'll be coming back here to Newark Liberty Airport to head back to Bedminster, where he's expected to have a rally and a news conference tomorrow night, 8:30 at Bedminster. We're still waiting for the former president's arrival here at Newark Liberty Airport. We will be able to tell when he gets very, very close. Of course, John Del Giorno is following his route, but we'll be able to tell here because you'll see the traffic start to stop around the airport. Once again, Port Authority out here taking care of the perimeter. Some of these roads around here we anticipate will be shutting down at least momentarily while the former president's motorcade makes its way here to Newark Liberty Airport. This is in the cargo area. This is where the plane has been parked for the last day or so. So that once again, they are expected to arrive here around 11:40 this morning. Wheels up at 11:50. That's when former President Donald Trump will be heading down to Miami, Florida. He'll expected to arrive down there at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Anthony Johnson at the airport. Thank you, Anthony. You mentioned John Del Giorno high above in Newscopter 7 following the former president's motorcade. John, let's bring you back in. Give us an idea of where we are and what are we, about 20, 25 minutes out?
Yeah, we look like we are right on schedule here, Mike. We are about 20 miles to the west. That exit sign you see there on Route 78, that is exit 33 for Bernards Township and Basking Ridge. And the motorcade is going by. Things to me look like they are exactly on schedule if the estimated time of arrival at Newark was 11:40. They are going to be really within just a few minutes either way of that estimated time. One thing I want to point out on the left side, you can see the westbound lanes of Interstate 78. Those aren't affected by any closures here. This is a bit of a traffic and a commuter story as well. But as the motorcade passes these exits, one thing you can see how traffic is being held getting on Interstate 78. We went past the busy intersection where 78 tangles up with Interstate 287. All of that traffic was held so the motorcade could pass. And that's what we're seeing here. But so far, generally uneventful, not huge traffic delays. These traffic closures generally are lasting maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but it is presenting a little bit of an inconvenience. But heads up again, this is the eastbound lanes of 78 exiting Somerset County, entering Union County within the next 4 or 5 miles. So expect those rolling closures to get down into that area as well. Mike?
All right, John Del Giorno on Newscopter 7 providing these live images of the former president on his way to Newark Airport. Well, he will depart in his plane headed to South Florida, landing in Miami late this afternoon, where he will, it's our understanding, meet with his legal team, perhaps interview more members of his legal team as he tries to add to his defense before the arraignment officially takes place tomorrow afternoon in downtown Miami at the Wilkie Ferguson Federal Courthouse. And again, we have never seen this before. A former president facing federal charges, especially in the middle of a campaign where he is the clear front runner. I want to bring in political analyst Hank Scheinkoff. And Hank, thanks for spending time with us. You know, I watched you on Up Close yesterday, and I thought you described this perfectly in the sense of saying it's sad. And when you think about the historical context of all of this, it is sad. And the office, and not even pulling politics into it, which it's hard to separate in this case, but the gravity of it is huge.
It is an immense day for this nation. We've never seen anything like it. The politics of it are quite extraordinary. The Republican Party is in a bind. It will do it best. Frankly, the front runners, you'll see most of them trying to defend Mr. Trump in one way or another. But the reality here is that this office will never be the same, and that our enemies throughout the world are looking at this moment and saying, isn't this great? And our friends are wondering, frankly, how we can meet our commitments if the former chief executive is able to take documents that could destroy our relationships and our military capacity with him and leave them in a bathroom.
Well, the president has been making the rounds. He spoke in Columbus, Georgia over the weekend at a campaign rally and really using this as a political weapon, saying that he is the victim of another witch hunt. And then you have even his GOP rivals saying similar things about how it's a double standard and how Republicans are held to a different standard than Democrats. How successful will that be as this process continues to play out? And by the way, this is not the only investigation. We know the criminal charges here in New York filed by the Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, but he's also under investigation still in the state of Georgia. So his legal issues far from over. But this line about being the victim of a witch hunt, at this point, it seems to be working. He's ahead in the polls by double digits. Can it work all the way until next fall?
It frankly can work. And this is really about the rule of law versus the value or the rule of public relations and marketing. Donald Trump's rallies are planned. They're put in place at particular times. They're well orchestrated. This will be kind of a repetition of the campaign that got him elected in 2016. The outdoor rallies, the massive public opinion exposure, the attempts by other Republicans to get in line because they're afraid of one thing, losing their jobs, losing their power. And Donald Trump's anger could frankly force that.
And it is this weird dance that they're making, the GOP rivals on the Republican side. I mean, you had Asa Hutchinson, really the only one, say that Mr. Trump should drop out of the race at this point. You have former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. He has a town hall tonight, but he said basically initially that he had to read the indictment, and then he made some comments. But it wasn't that attack sort of, Donald Trump needs to drop out, which he marketed himself as being the candidate to do that. So you have all of these, candidates on the Republican side. Really, it seems apprehensive about taking on Donald Trump directly, trying to still have his support on their side. Is there any chance for any of these Republicans to break through, or is it just, to me, when you look at it, if this instance doesn't present the opportunity for them to really take on what he's accused of doing, I don't know what will or when they will turn that way. Hank? All right. All right, so we'll try to get Hank reestablished there, but it is an interesting conversation. And talking about this indictment and the particulars of it, I want to bring back NJ Burkett. It's my understanding, NJ, and you're in Bedminster as the president just departed about 20 minutes ago, headed to the airport. It's my understanding that the co-defendant in this case, longtime advisor to the former president, Walt Nauta, is also traveling with him to Florida. What is that component to it, and what is his role in these allegations?
Well, Mike, I find that particularly interesting because you would think that in charging him, the feds would be looking to get him to essentially roll or make a cooperation deal with federal prosecutors to give evidence on Trump specifically. Not that they necessarily need it, because when you read through the indictment, if they can prove this case, the evidence is damning. The evidence is overwhelming. There are boxes of these documents. They know what the documents are, and they know what Donald Trump said to them in 2022 when they were trying to get all these documents back. Essentially, Trump communicated to them through his attorneys that he had given up everything. And then they get the warrant, they go in, and they find all of these boxes of documents, Mike. So what I was suspecting is going on here is that they're looking for some sort of cooperation deal. But then if he's in the motorcade with Trump, it makes you wonder how this is all going to play out, Mike.
No doubt about that. It is interesting. And, when you read through, again, 49 pages of detail in these allegations. And it wasn't just the possession of the documents, because you hear, especially on a lot of the Sunday shows yesterday, prominent Republicans, including Senator Lindsey Graham, saying this is a double standard, because they point to the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And they say Mike Pence had documents. And in reality, most former presidents do end up, from my understanding and reading through all this stuff, they do end up maybe inadvertently taking classified documents with them. But when they're asked about them, they've all given them back. The difference in this case is that the former president is not only accused of not giving them back, but in detail in this indictment, the allegations are that he perhaps even directed some of the lawyers to get rid of them, to sort of cover that up. Is that how you read it too?
Yeah, well, exactly. They're saying that essentially Trump was saying to one of his attorneys, you know what, you need to destroy the documents, or you need to tell them that I've given them everything. And this was one of his attorneys, top attorneys, who was making apparently copious notes along the way, contemporaneous notes about what Trump told him and when. So again, when we talk about overwhelming evidence, Mike, that's a big part of it. So, when John Bolton, his former national security advisor, was interviewed on CNN this morning, he was asked specifically, why do you think Trump would do that? And it's a great question, isn't it? You can speculate, and Bolton, who obviously spent, 17 months, I think, as Donald Trump's national security advisor, Bolton said it could be anything. It could be that he was seeking some sort of advantage, personal advantage to himself, perhaps even selling the information to someone. But he said it's also possible, he said, knowing Trump as I did, he said it's also possible that Trump might have been just looking to retain some of this stuff as souvenirs, essentially. Imagine holding on to a document that says top secret and then showing it to your friend saying, I was once the most powerful man in the world, and here is what I had in my possession and still have. It's all, mind-boggling. You ask the experts on both sides of the aisle, and they find it mind-boggling that we should even be in this situation, Mike.
No, it is fascinating, and what you just described apparently captured on audio, and some of those transcripts included in the indictment describing that very situation where the former president is accused of basically waving around a sensitive document to people that clearly had not been cleared to see or review that sort of material.
Right, and you would think that after 4 years in the Oval Office, he would understand the profound impact of these secrets. Again, the indictment paints these documents in broad strokes. Why? Because they're top secret. They can't tell you exactly what those documents were. So they describe them, paint them in broad strokes, like, U.S. nuclear secrets, U.S. defense weapon systems capabilities, and also information about foreign intelligence operations. So imagine if a foreign government got hold of, for example, and again, this is just an example, hypothetical, about if the Iranians, for example, got hold hold of the U.S. understanding of Israel's spy capabilities. What would the Iranians want to do with that? If that information were in a document, I'm just giving an example again. We don't know specifically what these documents were. But if someone got hold of a document like that in the Iranian government that gave up the identities of the Israeli spies that are in Iran, could you imagine? Not just the personal loss to the individuals, but the loss to intelligence gathering by these foreign governments in these places where they're certainly trying to keep tabs on the enemies. I mean, you can't underestimate the importance of this information, Mike.
Where the documents were kept, in a ballroom, in the bathroom, with people just walking in and around. I mean, it just is stunning when you see the pictures included in all the prosecutorial indictment pages.
Right. I mean, the pictures are almost so preposterous you'd think that they were somehow photoshopped, right? But no, these are pictures that the FBI took when they went in to raid the place. And I mean, just think about that. These are documents, some of them anyway, that require a certain level of security clearance, that you can only read them in a secure room, in a secure building. And now imagine these documents are sitting on the floor of a bathroom. Again, it's mind-boggling, really, Mike, without question.
Jay, thank you. We are looking on the right side of your screen, the former president's motorcade as it makes its way to Newark Airport, perhaps about 10 minutes away, getting ready to make his trip to South Florida, where he will stand for an arraignment tomorrow afternoon in downtown Miami. But as this motorcade makes its way to Newark Airport, let's bring in Debbie Duham. That has been, they've had these rolling closures as part of the motorcade so they can make their way through into the airport. Debbie, what are you seeing traffic-wise?
Look, right now you can see the footage of 78, and you can see the traffic moving fine on the eastbound side with former President Trump. But the westbound side, we are seeing some rubbernecking delays. You are seeing these partial closures on the eastbound side as former President Trump heads out to Newark Airport. Now, there's also a construction zone as you head from Union getting in toward Newark. So there's a little bit of a bunch up here as you head 78 eastbound as you get right into Newark. So again, there are local and express lanes there. So I'm sure former President Trump will be able to zip right through there. And again, you will also see some delays on 1 and 9 around the Newark Airport area, as well as former President Trump heads right into Newark Airport as well. So we're going to keep an eye on that for you. Back over to you, Mike.
All right, Debbie, thank you. So this is happening in New Jersey today. Tomorrow afternoon, a similar scene will be playing out in South Florida, where the former president will make his way from his Doral resort, which is near the airport and somewhat near downtown Miami, where he will go to his first appearance in that case, in the federal case in downtown Miami at 3 p.m. Of course, as you would imagine, security preparations well underway as all the authorities now working together to handle that appearance. ABC's Justin Finch with a preview.
Federal and local law enforcement have been working on a security plan for days for former President Trump and for the crowds he's called to rally here outside of Miami Federal Court. This morning, security ramping up in downtown Miami. The Secret Service already surveilling near the federal courthouse, where former President Donald Trump is set to formally face charges alleging he mishandled classified records and obstructed government efforts to get them back.
You get indicted over nothing. You get indicted over the Presidential Records Act, which they don't even admit. They call it the Espionage Act.
Trump, now the first current or former American president to face federal criminal charges, and to do so while campaigning for another term.
If even half of it is true, then he's toast. It's a very detailed indictment, and it's very, very damning.
Trump insisting he's done nothing wrong and that he will never leave the 2024 race. A new ABC News Ipsos poll finds nearly half of Americans polled think Trump should have been charged in the records probe, and nearly the same number think the charges are politically motivated. The sweeping 49-page indictment quotes Trump's own words from his 2016 campaign. But the indictment from special counsel Jack Smith alleges Trump refused to return national defense records, with some allegedly found improperly stored in a ballroom, a storage room, and a bathroom at Trump's Florida estate. Trump aide Walt Nauta is also facing indictment in the records probe, and the former president is due in federal court tomorrow. Justin Finch, ABC News, Miami.
And so the former president making his way to Newark, part of the motorcade right there, as captured by Newscopter 7. Let's go to the chopper now, and John Del Giorno, who has been following this motorcade ever since it left Bedminster, New Jersey. John, where are you now?
That's right, Mike. We are in Union County. We're actually in Union Township, New Jersey, and we're seeing some of that traffic that we were warning folks about on the westbound side of Route 78. So you see the eastbound side, the express and the local lanes are closed down so that the motorcade can pass through. And again, these closures are only lasting maybe 5 minutes, if that. They close the road. They make sure that there's no stragglers out there on the highway, and the highway is clear so that the motorcade can pass through. And as soon as that motorcade passes, they reopen it to traffic. As a matter of fact, behind this motorcade is a line of traffic that has been following it since Bedminster. But you see the westbound traffic there. There's a construction zone in here that you heard Debbie mention as well. So the closures were a little more complicated. This is about the worst delay that we have seen so far. But the motorcade itself, the former president now approaching the intersection of Route 78 and the Garden State Parkway. That puts them almost exactly 5 miles west of Newark Liberty International Airport. Their estimated time of arrival was 11:40. It looks like they're going to hit the airport probably about 11:43, 11:44. So things pretty much generally running on time here as the motorcade progresses towards the airport. Mike?
John Del Giorno and Newscopter 7 from the air. We go to the ground now, and at the airport is Anthony Johnson, awaiting for the former president to get there. About 5 minutes away, Anthony, according to John's estimates. What are you seeing now?
Yeah, I can see the Port Authority police are starting to block up some of the roadways right around this area. This, of course, the hangar where the president's plane is now awaiting his arrival. As John said, he'll probably arrive here anywhere after 11:40, and he will quickly make his way to that aircraft. They're expected to take off around 11:50 this morning. That's when they'll be heading down to Miami, Florida. As we said, the Port Authority has been checking on the perimeter. They've been out here all morning long, just making sure that everything is secure around the area, and they're making their moves right now in preparation for the motorcade, the former president's motorcade, to make its way here to Newark Liberty Airport. The aircraft that he'll be taking is actually just east of where I am standing. He will quickly pass by this area, turn right into the airport, going past the Port Authority and Police Administration building, making his way over to that aircraft. Once he arrives there, he'll get on that plane, hop on that plane, and there'll be wheels up. Once again, we're anticipating around 11:50, maybe a little bit delayed because of his late arrival here, but only a few minutes delayed. We're checking out on the roadways right in front of me. I can see routes 1 and 9. Traffic still moving along that area, but once he comes off of 78, then he'll be making his way onto those routes to make it right here to the airport. I could see Port Authority police. You could see them now parked close to where we are as they make their preparations, getting notification that the former president is just a few miles from the airport. As a matter of fact, I can now see some of the choppers that have probably been following the former president's motorcade making its way to this location. They are now parked as close as they possibly can be to the airport. Remember, once again, this is an active airport, so the choppers can't get that close. But John Del Giorno already telling us that he was in Union making his way here. We expect that the president's motorcade should be arriving here momentarily. I'm just taking a look over my cameraman Rob Cantwell's shoulder to see what's going on out there on the highway. Once again, as I said, a little bit of traffic still out there, but we do anticipate they'll be shutting that down. But once again, as John was talking about, those shutdowns only last a few moments, maybe less than 5 minutes. And at this point in time, getting to this location should be relatively quick. And once again, we expect him to pass by here, make his turn into the airport property, and make his way to the aircraft, and expected to get out of here at least before noon to head down to Florida. That's the latest live. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Anthony, thank you. Let's bring in political analyst Hank Scheinkoff. Hank, you know, as we're talking about what happens next, we know right now he is facing 2 sets of criminal charges, one on the federal level, the other on the state level here in New York. Hank, as we fast forward to the election next year, how could this play out as the former president may have to be in a courtroom instead of the campaign trail?
Well, it'll be the first of its kind in history, and frankly, something that Donald Trump would relish. He'll be running against the government. He'll be running for his supporters, those who are mostly alienated, who think that the society has failed them, who think the economics have failed them, who are angry at the elites on both coasts. It's his kind of audience. and he will be doing what he does best, running a television show.
And Hank, there was a new poll that was released over the weekend, and it appeared right here on Channel 7 yesterday, talking about the overwhelming dichotomy of the Republicans basically saying that they do not believe that the former president should be facing these charges, as you would expect, I suppose, although there is a prime opportunity for a lot of these challengers that would love to be in the front-runner status, although it is Donald Trump still in that seat. Do we expect that tune to change at all as we get months and months closer to the election?
Hard to estimate, but an important question. The reality is somewhat as follows. Those that love him and those that are part of that Republican coalition that love Trump unabashedly are never going to change. The problem here is that the contenders who are running against Trump, and that's what they're really doing, are cutting up a very small piece of the pie. They've got to hope that Trump collapses. He hasn't in the past. His favorables have remained always in the 35 to 40 range, not much less. It's hard to see how that collapses.
And one more as we watch the former president approach Newark Liberty Airport to depart for Miami. Hank, I'm curious, even with all of this stuff circulating around the former president, still in some of these polls, it shows that the former president would beat Joe Biden if the election were held today. Is that surprising to you? And what does that say on the Democratic side about the work that they need to do to try to shore up support for President Biden?
What it tells us, frankly, is that both parties are in serious trouble, have been for some time. Their coalitions are brittle at best. The Republicans are able to hold and rally around Trump. The Democrats, frankly, may not be able to rally around Biden with the same intensity.
Well, we'll be watching it all very closely. And Hank, you know, as we watch the former president now pull up to Newark Airport to head to Miami to face these federal charges, how does this sit in the modern context of the office of the presidency that we're witnessing all of this go down?
We have seen moments in the presidency that have changed it forever. Watergate being one, the Vietnam War being another, Iran Gate to some extent being the third. This goes on a lot, but this one is unusual because it involves the direct indictment of a president of the past seeking the office in the future. There's never been anything like this. It will sully the office. It will make it less important than it was. We'll give our allies great pause and our enemies great happiness.
Hank Scheinkauf, always appreciate your perspective as we're watching more history playing out right here on our screen. Hank, thank you. Let's go back to Newscopter 7 now and John Del Giorno. You're at the airport now, John?
We are just outside the airport here, Mike, where this is all taking place. It's on the north end of the airport, the cargo area. If you drive past Newark Liberty Airport, you know United Airlines has those huge maintenance hangars on the north end of the airport, and that's right about where Donald Trump's airplane is parked. There's an FBO in aviation speak. Just think of that as basically it's like a concierge. That's where private jets will park. That is right next door to those United hangars, but the former president's airplane is simply too big to get on their ramp, so they have to borrow some space out there. You can see them just pulling in these parking lots you see on the right. Those are parking lots, again, used by cargo employees, maintenance employees here at the airport. This is all taking place far, far away from the passenger terminal. So want to make that clear as well. If you've got a flight here, or if you know someone that's actually traveling out right now, operations at Newark Liberty Airport are going to be barely affected by this at all. We're watching departures and arrivals just move along as usual, and operations in front of the passenger terminals not affected. The roadways at the passenger terminals not affected. This is all on the north end, again by the cargo area. The other key building right here is the Port Authority Police Headquarters, Building 1. It's right here. And that's why you're going to see this heavy security. This is a pretty secure location in the first place, even more so right now. We'll send it back down to you.
All right, John, thank you. Let's go to Anthony Johnson now on the ground as the former president just pulled up. Anthony?
Yeah, I'm moving away from the camera, but you could see the motorcade just pulling in. Came in from the opposite direction, but you did see the four black SUVs. They passed by. President turning into this location here. This is where the Port Authority Police, that's where their location is. They're now heading to the aircraft. The former president now here at Newark Liberty Airport. You can see the motorcade still pulling into the airport. Lots of state police as they brought him in to this location just a few moments ago. He's going to be making his way to the aircraft, which is parked now right behind where we are standing, behind the 344 building to the east of where we are. He'll be making his way to his aircraft. Overhead, you can hear maybe some choppers overhead, one of that being a Port Authority Police helicopter, which is right over our location. We're standing out here on the roadway. This is the South Roadway. This roadway was closed off, blocked off. Police officers out here from the Port Authority locking everything down, at least momentarily. You can see over in this direction, you can see the traffic is still being held up. So anybody that may be trying to make it on one of these buses to the parking lot, they will have to wait a little bit longer. We had one protester that's over here. This is the only protester that was able to make it to this location, apparently, but the president did not even get a chance to even glimpse over here to see the sign that this gentleman is carrying. Probably did not even get a chance to notice that. So we were on the opposite direction of which the way they came in. Now they're probably getting ready to get into that aircraft, and expect momentarily the former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, will be leaving here from Newark Liberty Airport, heading down to Miami. Once again, once he gets down there, he'll be meeting with lawyers. He's going to stay at his resort down in Miami, and then at some point in time tomorrow, he'll be leaving there, and then once again, he'll have that 3 o'clock court hearing down in Miami. So that is the latest live from Newark Liberty Airport. Once again, you can see they're still holding traffic here, probably until the president gets onto that aircraft. And once again, we haven't seen any aircraft take off. John was talking about the fact that it really shouldn't have any delays, but right now there's no aircraft taking off.
And
so
Anthony, we'll jump in because the former president just exited his SUV and is now making his way onto his plane, walking up the stairs and about to get onto that plane emblazoned with the word Trump, his name on the plane. And he will be traveling to Miami, where he will prepare for his court appearance in downtown Miami tomorrow to face 37 counts as part of a federal indictment. Just a historic case. Part of those counts include the willful retention of national defense information and violating the Espionage Act. All of that playing out right here on ABC-7 NY. John Del Giorno has been following the motorcade since it left Bedminster, New Jersey. John, bring you back in. What is the process here? How quickly can a private aircraft, and in particular this plane, take off after he's boarded? What happens now?
I think it'll be surprisingly quick. They've got a flight plan filed, so it's just going to be a matter of the pilots on board the aircraft already. They'll get the baggage loaded on the aircraft, of which there's not a lot. It doesn't look like he's traveling with a large group of people. Let me zoom on in here, and you'll see the entourage that's going with the former president down to Miami. And there you can see some of those suitcases coming on. But it's not going to be a very long process. I would think that this airplane should be underway, at least taxiing out here within the next 5 to 10 minutes. As I look over the instrument panel of our own aircraft, there's very little delay. You know how it can get at Newark Airport sometimes, where you have a long line of departures, but right now I see 2 airplanes holding for departures. So all in all, I would expect that this airplane is rolling within the next 10 minutes, and it's probably off the ground within the next 15 to 20.
And John, I'm curious, you know, being a former president, how does the flight plan work? It's a route that he takes often, obviously, to South Florida and to Miami. In this particular case, it's our understanding that he's going to be staying at his Doral resort, which, you know, it's not Mar-a-Lago, which is farther away from downtown Miami. Doral, pretty close to where that court appearance will happen tomorrow. But as far as the former president actually flying down to South Florida, is this one of those things where they clear the space? It's not Air Force One, clearly. But how does that work with the former president making his way down to Florida?
I think not so much, and I would say nothing really officially, Mike. Once this airplane starts rolling, it's basically just like any other private jet, just like any other airplane out there. But of course, there is the security concern and the awareness that the former president of the United States is on board the airplane. And that would go for any airplane with any former president on board. So there's an awareness, a little bit of extra security, maybe given a little bit of priority once they get down there if the airspace is congested. But generally what will happen, this pilot will file his flight plan departing from Newark down to Miami. That flight expected to take 2 hours and 45 minutes, maybe 3 hours, and expected to arrive into Miami International. That was the the update that we got was that's where the airplane is headed, into Miami International Airport, right around 3 o'clock this afternoon.
And 24 hours from 3 this afternoon is when that appearance is scheduled at the Wilkie Ferguson Courthouse in downtown Miami. It's a really congested area down there, as you would imagine. There's a Whole Foods, and there are people trying to make their way around that area. No doubt it will be closed down tomorrow afternoon as the president appears in court. John Del Giorno, great coverage this morning from Newscopter 7. Let's go to Hank Scheinkoff again. And Hank, we talk about the legal team that the former president is trying to assemble, and it's my understanding that he is still in the process of hiring more attorneys, particularly those that can practice law in South Florida. He parted ways with a couple of attorneys that were making the media circuit last week. What does that tell you about how the former president is planning to defend himself in this federal case in Florida?
Trump has always been surrounded by all kinds of lawyers who come and go. There are only a few that have remained with him for any extended period of time. And it's just a mess. No one knows what to do with this case because there's never been a former president named Trump or any other former president charged with these kinds of crimes in that kind of venue. This will be a drawn-out process. They're going to have to figure out what they're doing. The problem is that Donald Trump will want lawyers that will do his bidding and run the case the way that he wants, which is his general style of doing things.
And it will be fascinating to see all of it play out, but we won't be actually seeing it because it's a federal courthouse, so there will not be images. There won't be pictures of him sitting at the defense table like we had with the criminal case here in New York. There won't be video of him walking out, maybe doing his signature fist pump or something like that, actually inside the courthouse. We'll rely on the old school court sketches and the like to see how all of that works tomorrow afternoon as he makes his appearance there at Miami. Hank Scheinkoff, thank you. We are now awaiting the departure of the former President Trump, as he makes his way to South Florida. He's expected to land at Miami International Airport this afternoon in about 3 hours. He's going to be staying at Doral Club, his resort there in South Florida, as he prepares to face these federal charges, 37 counts as part of a federal indictment dealing with willful retention of national defense information, conspiracy to obstruct justice, withholding a document or record, and corruptly concealing a document or record, concealing a document in a federal investigation, a scheme to conceal. That's a word you see a lot in the 49 pages that make up this indictment. And then the false statements and representations, which was what one of the lawyers who left his legal team last week alluded to, was that he was not fully aware of the whole scope of the allegations until that indictment, what was described as a speaking indictment. So we learned in great detail what the former president is now facing. In that process, on the federal level, for the first time in history, a former president facing a federal indictment in South Florida. You've been watching live coverage right here at ABC 7 NY. I'm Mike Marzon.